Neil Gussey, thank you so much for joining me today. Your films, Bax and Beyond and The Great 90s Rewind, are on Rialto channel this month. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to me.
No worries. It's great.
You must be very excited about these films. They look like they've probably taken a while for you to kind of put together. They seem so kind of the depth of material in terms of what you've got in terms of archival footage, but also in terms of people that you interview, is pretty extensive. So do you want to maybe talk about where this kind of idea for the documentary came from in the first place?
I did a photo shoot of Kylie Bax in 2018 for Paula Ryan, and we got on really well. And I said as a joke, "Oh, one day we should do a film of your life." And she said, "Yeah," because she's really cool. She's really relaxed.
Mm.
And during COVID, I did my first film, which was all about the Miss New Zealand contest.
Mm.
And after I did that, that actually got played on Rialto, and that sort of kick-started me. And I thought, well, what's next? And I thought, well, I'll do Kylie Bax. And then I thought I'll do a double feature. So I thought the first half will be about the 1990s, and the second half about Kylie Bax. And then I thought Kylie's story was so special, and she was such a superstar that she deserved to film on her own. So I did that film first, and that got a good reception. And then I moved on to the Great 90s Rewind,
And
which
so
is sort of my story.
yeah, totally. And so yeah, because this both films, but particularly the second one, obviously draw on your own experiences. So your background is also in this kind of the fashion
Yeah,
photography world.
yeah, yeah. And it kind of shocks me how long ago it was. It surprises me that the 90s was 35 years ago. That's when I first started. I, I love the fact I'm not an 80s photographer. I'm a 90s photographer. My first job was in 1990. So, yeah, it's kind of my story, which is
Yeah.
nice.
Well, it's a very vivid kind of recreation of the time. But returning to Bax and Beyond just for a moment, I mean, you're right in that I had read elsewhere that you had said, there's been so much focus on Rachel Hunter as this kind of image of
Hmm.
New Zealand beauty, but really Kylie Bax was is just as vivid of a figure, just as major of a figure in her kind of heyday. Why is it, do you think, that she has kind of not been as celebrated as some of her contemporaries?
I think she came at a time in the late 90s, or she really hit in 96. And I think the New Zealand media by that stage was sort of over anything to do with models or fashion. And there just wasn't a lot of interest in any fashion around then. New Zealand Fashion Week started in the early 2000s, but I remember in the late 90s when Kylie was on the cover of Italian Vogue and doing all these top magazines, and the media just didn't really pay attention.
Mhm.
Rachel Hunter was sort of, you're talking 1980s for Rachel.
Mm.
She's only a year older than me, but she really was famous in the 80s,
Mm.
uh, mid 80s, 86, 87. And she gave up. Well, I mean, not she didn't give up, but she wasn't really the word supermodel wasn't around when Rachel Hunter was modeling.
Mm.
So Kylie kind of came in right after the original supermodels. She was like the second wave, sort of 96, 97. There was Kate Moss, her, Amber Valletta. Um, but Kylie was, pretty much the top model in the world. She was number one
Mm.
in that era.
And it's fascinating because we still talk about people like Kate Moss to this day, and so we should really be talking about Kylie Bax as well. I mean, and she's such you'd think that New Zealand would be more celebratory of that fact, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, she's had a lot of press. I've seen her when I researched into the film. She's been on a lot of TV shows, and she's had tons of magazine covers in New Zealand, and all the weeklies covered her. But I just don't think the New Zealand public have the interest anymore in models.
Mm.
That era's gone, I think, you know.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, it's such a it's such a fascinating also portrait of this kind of the interior of that world as well, because um, from the outside it's all glamour, it's all the output, but something that really struck me was that kind of the ongoing reminder that it's hard work, it's punishing work a lot of the time. Is
Yeah.
that your
It-
experience as well?
yeah, it's not a industry I would recommend to many people. I think you've got to be really strong.
Mm,
I've been doing it for 35 years and I don't take it too seriously. Um, I have I fly back to New Zealand 4 times a year and I shoot for Trelise Cooper,
mm,
who is a good friend of mine, and I have a great time working with the team, and that that's enough for me now. Like I
mm,
don't have the need to chase working for magazines, and because you always have to keep trying to get the magazine working. You're always being replaced by someone else. Everybody gets replaced in this industry.
mm.
So I don't think people even buy magazines anymore. Are there any magazines in New Zealand anymore? I don't even know.
I think my mum still gets them.
Like the Woman's Weekly and yeah,
No, no,
yeah.
I mean you still see them on the shelves for sure. There's still a couple of magazine shops out there.
There's not as many though, is there?
No, I would not say no, not as many.
They were so powerful when I was working in my 20s. It's like to get the magazine work was like a Bible, to do a shoot for Fashion Quarterly or
What do you
all
think?
of them.
What do you think is lost with the kind of with that fade, that element fading from the fashion industry? Do you think something major is being lost at the same time?
I think everything is just very fast and very digital now. Everything's online.
Mm,
Everything is there's no there's still fashion models, but there's reality TV, there's influencers. The whole industry sort of merged into one. That sort of fashion industry. If you went to New Zealand Fashion Week now, you'd see all sorts of people on the runway.
mm,
There's people in wheelchairs. There's people, like back in the 90s, there was strict rules
mm,
for the fashion industry.
mm,
To be a model, you had to be a certain height, a certain weight, and people weren't afraid of laying down the rules,
mm,
whereas now we live in a sort of society where everything's accepted and anything goes.
mm.
That's the main difference. Yeah.
So yeah, so some positives, I suppose, as well as a nostalgia for that time.
Oh, definitely.
Mm,
I don't know if it was any better back then.
mm,
Uh, we like to look back at past times and think it was way better back then, but I don't think it was better. I think
mm,
um, it was just so different, the power of the magazines. And,
mm.
I remember someone having a mobile phone on a shoot and it was like space age, you know, with a battery pack and
I love that.
so different.
It's good.
How old are you? How old are you? You're
I'm 33, so I would have been
okay. So
the
you were
great
born in the
90s rewind
90s.
for me. That's my childhood.
Be quite interesting your perception of the 90s because you would have been a child.
Mm.
Yeah,
Most of my memories of the 90s tend to come these days through Remember This children's toy or TV show. So, uh,
yeah.
yeah, no, it was a very different world for me.
Does it shock you that it was so long ago? It's sort of
Oh,
crazy.
oh,
It's like,
certainly. Oh, most definitely. No, it's horrifying. Um, but it is a really, really fascinating decade because it feels like it was on the cusp of two different like it feels very, very different to the eras that came before it in a way that was suggestive of where we are now, but never quite the same. I mean, it's that cusp of pre-internet era, which
yeah, yeah.
is like a fascinating time, and I'm very happy to have been able to live through that at least somewhat.
I think if you look back at the fashion shows from the 90s or the magazines, they're starting to look quite old-fashioned now, but a lot of the work that we did back then hasn't dated that badly. Like
Yeah.
if you look at some of the work from the 80s, it looks horrific, the makeup and the hair and the whereas you can look at some of the shots I did in the film
Mm.
I have for my work going through the film, and it hasn't dated that badly. It's not, you don't
Yeah.
look at it
No, no.
cringe. Yeah.
I think that's generally the case with a lot of 90s ephemera stuff because um I don't know, it remains in vogue and maybe in a way that some of those other eras have this kind of kitschy thing attached to them nowadays.
Yeah. And
Mm,
it was a era of the supermodel and
mm.
the super magazines,
Yeah,
and it's something we'll never get back. You'll never get that sort of excitement back,
yeah, of course.
that we had in the 90s. I
Mm.
don't think.
And so the film, obviously, as you mentioned, it uses a huge range of your own work, but it feels like there's an extensive amount of archival work that's gone into it as well. So, what was the experience of putting the film together in that regard? What kind of research, what kind of reaching out to people was there? Was it a long
Uh,
process?
no, I just used to keep bits and pieces on videotape, old VHS. I used to
Ah,
record the fashion shows, and um, so I just used a lot of that, and
mm,
I kept everything I ever shot, and um, just sort of pieced it all together. I mean, you're always trying to find as much stuff as you can. A lot of stuff is impossible to find, I find.
yeah.
You can't get hold of a lot of fashion shows from back then. So I just used stuff I had stored from
Mm.
years ago.
It's
I randomly recorded stuff and I just had
yeah.
it. So
Well, it gives it a sense of almost like a visual scrapbook, I suppose. It's all these kinds of bits and pieces that have been put together into this whole from a career, from a life.
yeah, it's when we had the premiere, I think people sort of were quite surprised how I wanted it to be really fast paced and almost like a feeling of being in a nightclub.
Mm.
That's why I had the music and everything. So it's quite fast and
Mm.
um, I don't know if you call it dramatic, but fast and loud. Yeah,
Mm.
that's what I wanted.
Mm.
Because people sort of came out and they were like, "Whoa!" It was like a '90s overload.
Yeah, well, I found it quite interesting the way you framed your interviews right to camera and you put this kind of bright light on their face. It did have this feeling of immediacy and being like right up close,
Yeah,
breaking through the screen, in a sense, which gives me the idea of like paparazzi cameras flashing or something like that.
yeah, that's what I wanted. I wanted it to be very zoomed in and close
Mm.
and in their face, which is a really hard thing to do. It's really hard to put a camera on someone and get you would know, something interesting or new out of anybody.
Sure.
So I took that as a challenge,
Mm.
and I learned as I went. Every interview, I kind of stored something in my brain and thought, "Oh, I'll try that next time," and
Mm.
yeah.
So
So
was this sort of your first foray into like long form interviewing of this sort of nature?
yeah, yeah, pretty much. Like for the Miss New Zealand film, I had a set of questions that I asked everybody,
Right.
and then I went down the route of putting it all together. So you'd have 10 answers to that question and using the best ones. But in the 90s one, I was more random and just kind of
Mm.
tried to get people to be more spontaneous,
Mm.
I
And
guess.
yeah, well, I mean, you have access to a whole lot of really, really interesting kind of figures from throughout the history of that time.
Yeah.
What was it? Were these people who were just sort of in your orbit, or
Yeah.
was there some finding these people involved?
Well, a lot of them are my friends
Mm.
and people I'd worked with for through the 90s.
Mm.
And I wanted to have like a different group of people, like a hairdresser and a makeup artist
Mm.
and the models. And that's why I didn't want to put Kylie into the 90s film because she was so top
Mm.
that I thought she deserved a movie on her own.
Yeah.
Um, and looking back at it now, it wouldn't have worked. Um, you needed the 2 hours for the 90s film. I had in my mind that I was going to do it in 30 minutes and it was going to be a comedy and
Mm.
a sort of romp through the 90s, a warming up for Kylie Bax. But I'm really glad I kept them separate now.
Mm. They do
Yeah.
feel very distinct from each other, I suppose.
Yeah, well, Kylie the film is a lot more serious and it's more, um, I mean, she's so beautiful, and all her images are so strong. And
Mm.
um, whereas the '90s one is more just a recollection of, you know,
Mm.
an era that's gone.
That's yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you have this kind of you're building this body of work in terms of the films that you've made so far, all in the world of New Zealand fashion. Is that something that you're planning to continue? Are you exploring this route further from here?
I'm
Oh,
shooting a book at the moment, and I bought a dress
mm,
from really cheap dress for $100, and I photographed it on one model, and
mm.
everyone on the shoot started freaking out. This dress is amazing. This dress is the best thing I've ever seen. And I thought, oh, well, there's my next idea. So I'm doing a book and an exhibition, and I'm going to shoot the same dress on 40 women,
Oh wow.
all different ages. I've got one that's
Brilliant.
83, one that's 17. And I thought that's a cool idea. One dress, 40 women, all different scenarios. So every woman has a different story. So I'm going to London on the way back from my next trip, and I'm going to shoot one at Buckingham Palace.
Wow.
And
Fantastic.
I'm going to, yeah. So every picture will be a different story. So that'll keep me going till next year, and then I will
Very
get
prolific.
on get on to Trelise. Say, come on,
Oh,
Trelise.
just casually onto Trelise. Oh, very good.
Well,
Well,
she's our most famous designer, and
mm,
she's got some great stories, and she's dressed a lot of famous people like Madonna and
mm,
Sex and the City, and so many stories that
mm.
would be great on film, I
Again,
thought.
it's one of these stories from this world which feels remarkable that we don't talk about it more, that we don't celebrate it more. Um,
Yeah,
seems to be
yeah.
part of the kind of mission statement, I suppose, for these films.
Yeah, one of my friends said to me, "Oh, I think you've finally got it all out of your system now." So I don't know.
Well, we
It's
hope not
hard.
because we want to get more from you.
It's hard making films, though. You do feel very alone. You feel very.
Yes.
When I watched the final '90s film, I was like, you don't know what people are going to think of it. And you really have to trust your own
Hmm.
judgment on editing and who's in there. And of course, you can look back and think, I could have done things differently, but it's too late, isn't it? Once it's done, it's done.
It takes on its own life at a certain point.
But I think being a photographer, you're used to getting critiqued all the time. If someone's not happy with what you do, they tell you. So
Hmm.
I'm used to that. They tell you, all right.
Yeah.
They-
I can imagine, particularly in the fashion world, I can
So
imagine.
I think it's interesting hearing people's views on the film, and
Hmm.
I sort of take it with a grain of salt, you know.
Well, I'm sure you'll be getting a fair amount of response from the films when they premiere on Rialto this month. Neil, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to me today.
Oh, no worries. It's been fun.
Please check out Bax and Beyond and the Great 90s Rewind on Rialto channel. Neil, thank you again.
Thanks, Tom.